Okay, so this video I wanted to talk about edit points and also talk about orient 2 points. Both are very useful tools, particularly when it comes to creating an organic piece and also for modifying your profile. So the very first thing I want to do is grab my curve menu and select an interp curve, and I'm just going to create just an interp curve that has a sharp point in it, something like that there. And maybe something like that. Okay. Now, because we're trying to keep this as organic as possible, this area here really isn't helping us out very much. So what we can do is we can select our curve there, and we've got a couple of different options here. We've got our edit points. We also have our control points. So our edit points enable us to select a particular point and manipulate it and move it into a perhaps better position. Now the control points, which is the next tool along, do a similar kind of thing, but what these do is they control the steepness of the actual curve itself. So they can come in pretty handy when it comes to trying to make something look a little less sharp, a little bit more organic. Now, once you've finished with either of those particular tools, what we can do is we can simply hit escape. I'm going to bring back my control points, and I'm going to see what happens if I delete this particular point here. So what we end up with is something that looks a lot more continuous rather than what we had there before, because from this point to the point that I just deleted, it was fairly kind of straight, and then from that point it was another kind of I guess a sweep, if you want to call it that. By deleting it, it's actually just blended between this point and this point really quite nicely. And you can continue doing things like that, experimenting and just seeing how things look. Like, for example, if we were to get rid of this guy here, it kind of starts to manipulate the piece around. We can still grab a point, kind of just maybe manipulate that up a little bit. The last thing we really want is to create a sharp, a look here to something that's meant to look fairly organic. So so something like that. And again, if you weren't happy with it, you can either undo or simply just hit delete. I don't want to delete that, so I'm going to bring that back. Alright, so that's edit points and control points, and what I'm going to do is just hit escape to get rid of those points. The next thing I want to do is select my curve here, F6, and just go to Profile Placer, which will place a profile on the curve itself. Now you can see the profile is not sitting flat, it's sitting to the y-axis, which is the default there. You can come across the left hand side here and just click on where it says y-axis until it says flat, and that will flatten that out for us. You could also use your handles here, but I prefer to use this particular method. I'm going to hit add as well, and I'm going to add a profile. Maybe kind of narrow that down a little and go to add, and then take that one right to the end, and maybe we'll narrow it down just a little bit more. Maybe take that height up a touch and hit enter. Alright, the next thing I want to do is sweep that, so select curve, F6, and sweep one with history, and just select our profiles in the direction that the arrows are pointing, and we end up with something that looks like that. Now, let's just say we didn't really want this half round, or this slightly half round look at the top here. We want something that was maybe looking a little bit different, perhaps that engraved look that you can achieve. And what we can do now is select the piece, go into our solid menu and hit extract surface. We're going to extract that top surface there and hit enter, and then we're going to delete it. The next thing we need to do is we need to create a curve that we want to orient to that particular piece that we've got there. So in the through finger viewport, I'm just going to grab out my curves, and I'm going to select my arc direction, for example, and just grab, say, something like that there, maybe something like that, and something like that there. Alright, so when I'm finished with that, make sure that you select everything there and join it all up. So it's one curve. And then the next thing we're going to do is go into our transform menu and select orient 2 points. Now the command line will select our object, and then we're going to hit enter. The reference point 1 will be one reference point on one side and the second reference point on the opposite side. And then what we need to do is determine what is our target point. So from that point there to this point here, make sure you got your near snap on for this one, from say that point there and there. Keep rotating around. You know, you could always put another point just say there where the original profile was. Maybe a point here. And we'll do one final point just here, just there, and then hit enter twice just to kill that command. The next thing we can do is we can select our sweep to option in surface menu. So we're going to select one side and then the opposite side, and then we're going to select our new profiles that we've just created. Just make sure you get all of them. This guy here, that one there, and I think that's the last one. Yeah, that one there. And hit enter. And hit OK. And what we end up with is something that looks like that. So essentially you've created a new profile, being this guy here, and added it to the top of your piece there, which we can then simply select everything there and just make sure you hit join, and that will join all of that up. So that's orient 2 points. Hope that helps.